gradations for my every curve. Every strand of hair, you placed it perfectly. Every feature art is what you were. I'd be a fool to ever try to improve. Look at my eyes, I'm simply a reflection. Peer in my soul and get a glimpse of heaven. Have no desire to change your masterpiece. I'm beautiful just the way you made me. Yeah. Wish I could give you this feeling. Damn, I love myself. Couldn't see being no one else. Damn, I love this feeling.
Welcome to Her and Him, where you'll get a perspective from her. You'll get a perspective from him. And we welcome you to share your perspective as well. Thanks for stopping by. Now, let's join in on the conversation.
What you just said about are people intrinsically positive or intrinsically negative? Do you believe that most people see things in a positive way all the time or a negative time all the time? Like, elaborate on that question because I thought it was interesting.
Well, when I said that, I was thinking about a group that had just walked into the restaurant, and I looked at them and I sized them up, and then I kind of went back to what we were talking about and doing. And I thought that was weird on my part that I kind of paid attention to who came in, but I'm so used to doing that in places that you should pay attention to who's coming in that I put a thought to it that wasn't as positive as it could have been. It wasn't like, look at these.
So what you're saying is you had an interesting thought and you realized that you were being negative.
Exactly, absolutely. And that's what took me to that question or point was most people that are not always positive or positive, run into problems because you're judging, you're putting your own bias on something, you're not thinking about the other person's feelings, or you don't empathize with them. You're showing bad traits, and nobody probably would even tell you because they don't know how negative you are because you might keep it to yourself. Yo. Well, we got a little background mood music. So what were we talking about?
So the one thing that I wanted to bring up again was when we were talking about, you asked me, did I think that were people intrinsically good or intrinsically evil? Like when you think about things, do you intrinsically think a positive thought or do you intrinsically think a negative thought? And why do certain people think positively or certain others think negatively? And so I was saying how our environment shapes that, right? People who grow up around positive people tend to have a more positive outlook versus people who grow up around negative people tend to have a more negative outlook. And so the way a people shows up in the world is reflective of their environment. It's reflective of their upbringing. It's reflective of their experiences. And we see the world through the lens that has been formed by our experiences.
When you think about the environment that we all have in our lives right now, the people in our life affect our mindset. Good, bad, sometimes maybe neutral. When I was growing up, my mother used to always say to me, there's no such thing as can't. And it used to drive me nuts. So if I couldn't figure out how to do something, Mom, I can't do this. She'd say, Paul, there's no such thing as can't. And I'd sort of go off in a sulk and I'd try and figure out to do whatever it is I was doing. This sort of came back to bite her in the ass a couple of years later when I told her I wanted to row across the Atlantic. The first thing she said to me was, Paul, you can't do that, don't be daft. I was like, Mom, there's no such thing as can't. But if you like this mantra, if I could call it that, of Mom, it had a really powerful effect on my mindset growing up. I didn't realize it at the time. And another component, most of us here tonight probably have a phone in our pocket. Another element of our environment is technology and how it impacts us. When we were out in the Atlantic, we had a satellite phone with us. That was the only piece of communication technology. And some of you might know satellite phones are very expensive to make calls on it, so we didn't use it that much. But we turned it on once or twice a day to get a text message. And it was nearly one of the highlights of the day, because you turn the phone on and you get a message maybe from family or friends, or sometimes people you didn't even know. And also we get a weather forecast. And I remember turning on the phone one day and I was all excited to see how many messages we might have got. 5 or 6 would be a good day. And I was sort of deflated because we only had one. I thought, And my mood went from a little bit of deflation to absolute fear and panic when I turned on the message, because it was a weather forecast and it just said hurricane warning Epsilon. And Epsilon was the name of the hurricane. So, whether it's a piece of technology, whether it's the people in our lives, the one thing I learned from this experience or other adventures that I've done is the environment that we have around us has a massive impact on our mindset. And the mindset from a knock-on point, that affects how we behave every single day. In the work that I do when I'm working with clients, often I get, I don't have time for this, or I can't make time for that. And of course, we're all time challenged, I get that. But probably one of the biggest gifts I've gotten from these trips is that, someday the sun will set on all of us. I don't know how long I've got. The clock is ticking, but make use of the time I have, because I'll never get it back. And if I was to think that I have my activities and my behaviors here every day, and they affect the outcomes that I'm going to get in life, if I accept that my mindset will play a role in how I behave, I think most of us would accept that's probably reasonably accurate. If I then take a step above that and think of my environment, so if you think of your environment, the people in your lives, where you work, who you work with, what you read, what you listen to, what you choose to listen to, the people you choose to listen to, all of that environment has a massive, massive effect on mindset. So I was told earlier on today that it's a good idea maybe to have a call to action and have a suggestion. One of the things I'm very aware of is that if I make a small tweak in my environment, it could be where I work, it could be the people I spend time with, it could be how I spend an hour in the evening. It can have a very significant effect on mindset. And over a period of time, these small things add up. We would have done 2,500 strokes every 2 hours on the Atlantic. If you were to plot where you go with that, it's nothing. It's the width of a fingertip on a map. So you'd never really do it. But over time, these small little accumulations, they build up to something a bit more significant, which in this case was us making it across the Atlantic. Thank you.